show of hands, how many people here know who their banker is? And I don't just mean the bank. The banker, the person you would go to for a loan. You'd call and say, so a very limited number of hands, or a little bit of this. How about your grocer? Anybody know who your grocer is? Not the guy who checks you out, the person who actually owns the grocery store. Again, very few. The reality is, many years ago, that was very, very different. Most people within a neighborhood knew exactly who your banker was or who your grocer was. You saw him at church. You saw him down at the store, the local bar, wherever that may be. The reality is, we have, or they have, in our minds, become a bit of a noun. Now sure, they work for, say, a proper noun, a commerce bank, or a price chopper. But they are purveyors of functions or positions within that proper noun, really. They might be a familiar face or an acquaintance, but we don't have a strong tie to them. There's nothing to us if something bad happens to them for the most part. So that got me to thinking about a lot of what I do for a living or have done and what my wife does for a living. She is a database marketer for a marketing firm, and one of their major clients is Price Chopper. The situation is essentially this. You, as customers of places like Price Chopper, have, in a sense, become a noun. I go to Price Chopper, and I have a Price Chopper card. We all have those loyalty cards. And I hand them a piece of paper that gives them my demographic and geographic information. So they have my name and a little bit about me, and then they assign a number to me. They put me in a database, and I've now given them permission to track everything that I buy and the frequency in which I buy it. Gives them the opportunity then to come back and say, we should do some marketing relative to that behavior. So ultimately, I became a noun. I'm a data point. If my name even was in the database next to my information, it's doubtful anybody would even know who I am. And I, in turn, would never know who the person on the other end is who's taking this information and analyzing it. Now, to say that's good or bad, you know, it just depends on your perspective. The reality is technology has changed how we do things. But I would venture to say that we have started to let database and data rule our lives to the extent that we've started hearing terminology like, if it can't be measured, it just doesn't really matter. I've heard people say that. The bottom line matters. If I can't measure something, it doesn't matter. So that has also then beget what I would call truthiness of numbers. Now, mind you, I'm not talking about numbers that people intentionally fudge. You know, this isn't Enron I'm talking about. The truthiness of numbers, in my mind, is simply that we look at information and we put a lot of weight on the data of the information that we have in front of us. We look at it and say, well, this is ultimately telling me what I want, so I think this is good. I should move forward with this. But do the numbers by themselves really give you the big picture? Do they tell you everything you should know about what you're looking at? So let's do an example, if you will. I have two numbers up on the board. Sitting here looking at them mean very little on their own. One's higher than the other. Does it matter that one's higher than the other? What if we're playing golf? You want a lower one, right? Now for a moment, let's say you're a banker. And these are FICO scores, credit scores. Everyone seems to have a pretty good understanding of that, right? And we have labeled ourselves based on this information, or somebody has labeled us. Now, if you're a banker and you've been told, well, we need to drive the bottom line, we need some help here, you have the opportunity for one loan, and we have two applicants. If I'm looking at this information, I'm going to go, well, who's the likely candidate? I need a low-risk situation. My job would be on the line. I'm going to go with that, correct? Whoever that is, I have no idea, nor do I care, as long as their credit worthiness says that they will be able to pay me back. Now, what if I said the 800 score is a real estate management or development company out of California? You've still not talked to anybody from them, and you don't know who they are. but they have a local attorney who you vaguely might know, helping them to broker the deal to get the funding to buy some local land or to rent some local land. Okay, creditworthiness, that's great, good business. But now what if I said this 600 is related to a local bakery, and the person who owns that local bakery has only been in business for about 4 years, and it's your mom or your best friend? Does that necessarily then mean that they're not worthy of that? The reality is the qualitative side of that would suggest that, well, I know them. I know they're good for it. They would never want to embarrass themselves, nor me. But if I go to the board, what are they going to do? I don't know. Short term says this, right? So that gives you, I think, some understanding of what the situation is. Now, as I said, I like to think that I'm more of an idealist than I am a realist. And sometimes I guess that could mean a pessimist if you think about it. But I value the relationship more, I think, than being a number. I want to be a proper noun. I want to be able to call another proper noun within a bank and say that I need a loan. So I think that we understand what it is that we need and want, but it's very difficult for us to continue to manage to that because of how things have changed. So ultimately, what I really wanted to express to you and to say is that moving forward, rediscover the relationship and start demanding to be more of a proper noun.